opportunity to play like gods for the next half of football. But we can't be afraid to lose. There's no room for fear in this game.
This is the New Hampshire High School Football Show.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
You can't stand the way this place is. Take yourself to higher places.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
The New Hampshire High School Football Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
You got heart, charisma, and a lot of skill.
Take yourself to higher places.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier and Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Let's go play some football.
Good morning. It is week 6 of the New Hampshire High School football season. This is the New Hampshire High School football show each and every Saturday morning between 8 and 9 a.m. AM 610, WGIR News Radio 610 in the Manchester area. Also, FM Seacoast signal for you, 96.7. We like to call them News Radio 610 and 96.7. My name is Pete Terrier, and no, Dave Haley not here today. He's up doing the family reunion type of thing in the Great North Woods, Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. So we're bringing in an able replacement. Hey, let's face it, he might even be better than Dave Haley. We're talking to Roger Brown here from the New Hampshire Union Leader and NHFootballReport.com. Roger, seems like I just left you.
You did.
A short night for both of us. We went overtime. We were working overtime last night at the game that we were at, and it was a good one, and I think it was worth it. Concord and Pinkerton going to extra time. A lot of other exciting football around the state. Playoff implications galore. Coast to coast. Well, I guess there's no other coast here in New Hampshire, but I think you get the point. Why don't we get into it right away and do the scoreboard? Our scoreboard, as always, brought to you by the New Hampshire Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement and that Buyers Beware campaign, reminding all adults it's against the law to provide alcohol to minors. Even if the Boston Red Sox, or in Roger's case, your L.A. Dodgers, are in their league championship series, just don't do it. Although Roger tells me that it didn't go well in Game 1 for the Dodgers last night, but at least he fell asleep and didn't have to watch the loss to St. Louis. Red Sox and A's coming up tonight. Here's a scoreboard with one Roger Brown.
Thank you, Pete. Division 1 last night. It was Bedford 45, Memorial 14. Exeter got back on track after a couple of losses by beating Alvern 55-28. Nashua South remained unbeaten with a 42-22 victory over Dover. Keene 30, Winnicott 19. Keene looks like a team that could finish strong and still be left out of the playoffs. We can talk more about that later.
Just so people have an idea.
Londonderry 45, Merrimack 14.
Maybe we'll go ahead and take that break.
Nashua North beat Timberlane 34-28 in overtime.
News Radio 610, 96.7.
Central 33, West 6. The game we were at, Concord 21, Pinkerton 14 in overtime, probably the game of the night. Moving to Division 2, it was Pembroke 38, Kingswood 23. Merrimack Valley still with one loss. They beat Sanborn 28-7. The big game on the Seacoast, Portsmouth really has its offense rolling. They beat St. Thomas 49-28, St. Thomas's first loss of the season. Lebanon 24, Hanover 17 in a rivalry game. Wyndham 45, Kennett 14. And in Division 3, it was Winnisquam 27, Franklin 6, and Mascoma 54, Fall Mountain 20.
Yeah, a lot of points scored by Mascoma. You're looking around the state, and Roger, some of the things that jump out to me, obviously the game that we were at, and we're going to talk a lot about the Concord win over Pinkerton, 21-14 in overtime. We'll also have Coach Eric Brown from the Crimson Tide, the number one team in our Union Leader WGIR, WMUR Power Poll. Nashua South rolling on, Exeter, as you would expect, bouncing back. That Keene win last night against Winnicott and sets up a scenario that you said, hey, Keene's a real good football team. They're top 10 worthy in the power poll, but they might be on the outside looking in on the playoffs. You had that big game on the Seacoast, St. Thomas and Portsmouth. And, let's start there if we can. When we're at another game, we always want to know what's going on at games that we're not at. And there's people asking us at the games, what's happening in this game? What's happening in that game? I remember we were talking to Coach O'Reilly after the game, and he's like, who won that game? I can't remember which game it was he was asking about. But I'm following on Twitter, and that's what I love about technology, that St. Thomas Portsmouth game, and I see St. Thomas jumps out 14-0. And then next thing you know, boom, Portsmouth's blowing them away. Were you a little bit surprised for St. Thomas to jump out on top of them? And secondly, were you surprised that Portsmouth was able to come back and really shut them down the rest of the way?
Well, definitely surprised, like you, when I saw the St. Thomas 14-0 score. Portsmouth has that high-risk, high-reward offense. I think they made a couple of mistakes early on is what I'm hearing, and St. Thomas was able to capitalize. But I really thought the Portsmouth offense would overwhelm St. Thomas in that game. So the final score was not a huge surprise to me. All the respect in the world to Eric Cumba and the St. Thomas staff, but I just think Portsmouth has more horses, and they might be the second best team in Division II. They're right in the mix, obviously, with Trinity, Monadnock, and the big boy Plymouth. And Portsmouth's at Plymouth next week, so we're going to find out a lot about just how good the Clippers are, next Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun game to watch. I definitely plan on being there. I'm sure you're probably going to go there as well. Bedford, Manchester Memorial. Finally, Bedford gives up some points. I think it was, early third quarter against Pinkerton in week 1 when the last time they gave up some points, and Memorial scored 14 on them last night, but still lost 45-14. The Bedford defense is very good. The Memorial offense is also very good. They don't have any defense. That seems to be a problem around the state, lack of defense. But what does that say about Bedford finally giving up some points, going into that showdown game with Concord next Friday night up there at Memorial Field in Concord? Is that a good thing for Bedford to have that streak snapped going into that game?
Well, it was going to happen sooner or later, and to be honest with you, just holding Memorial to 14 points is pretty impressive. I mean, Memorial's got a lot of offensive weapons, so I wouldn't consider that to be a bad defensive performance. They got the W, not caught looking ahead to the Concord game. That's probably what Kurt Hines cares most about. Looks like it was a solid win, and still undefeated. That's the main thing.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about that Concord Pinkerton game as the show goes on. Just want to kind of go around the state right now, and we'll start in Division 1. The Keene-Winnacunnet game. Winnacunnet, I don't understand that team, all right? We were both at the game against Exeter, and they looked great in that game, and they looked, certainly maybe even top 5 worthy in the state. But since then, and Keene is a really good football team. 30-19, Keene wins it last night. But I just don't understand. Close calls against Alvern, close calls against Nashua North. I'm sure there's, Bishop Girton is a good football team. They beat them by 1. But what is it with this Winnacunnet team? Is it just that they get so up for their rivalry game against Exeter and they're just flat against everybody else?
Well, I think that's part of it, Pete. One thing I've learned over the years covering the Exeter-Winnacunnet rivalry is Winnacunnet in particular usually plays its best, to or close to the best of its ability against Exeter. So they're never as good as they look in that game, typically, and they looked fantastic this year, I thought, against Exeter. So sometimes you tend to overrate them off that one performance. That said, I still don't understand why they're struggling with some of these teams. I mean, obviously they're capable of beating just about anybody, if not everybody, or anybody on a given night, and some of these scores make you scratch your head for sure. Not sure what's going to happen with them. And again, the interesting thing with them is, or the Keene, that whole game is Keene's going to, if they do get left out, they're probably going to lose out to either Winnacunnet or Spalding, and it looks like it's possibly Spalding, a team they beat 41-0. Mm-hmm. That's going to. That should get the attention of the football committee for sure if that scenario unfolds that way.
Do you think that they didn't consider that there would be teams because of the way the conferences were set up? I mean, I look at that West Conference in D1 as being really, really tough. Nashua South, BG, Keene, even the teams that are struggling at 1-5 right now in Nashua North and Alvern, and North just picked up their first victory last night. those teams obviously have shown that they can play with the other teams in the league. Do you think that the football committee looked at that and said, hey, the way this is set up, Nashua South, BG Keene, they could be pretty good, and there's other situations where there's more than two really good teams. Did they consider that? I mean, is this the lesser of two evils, having to go with it like this, or is this something that they didn't foresee?
Not sure, Pete. I just know that they had a lot to do in a short amount of time because their earlier proposals got rejected. So, maybe it wasn't quite as thorough as it could have been. I've heard some of the committee members say, if you finish third in a 5-team conference, you don't deserve to go anyways. And there's usually some merit to that, but, if you do have a weak conference, maybe that third-place team is deserving. And in this case, it looks like Keene, would be more deserving than either Spalding or Winnacunnet. So I also think they thought the championship games in each conference was going to be a big thing, and it's too early to judge, of course, but I think most people are just looking at them as just a quarterfinal round game in the playoffs, not a big, quote unquote championship game for the conference title.
Well, look at the situation in that the North Conference. I'm still getting used to what these conferences are called, even the fact that they are conferences within the division. But the North Conference with Concord and Bedford, we talked about those teams meeting up next week. They are going to play each other in that conference championship game. I mean, I see no scenario where Manchester Central is able to sneak in there, despite the fact that they're now 4-2 after the victory over West last night. And they still have to play Bedford in the regular season finale, and I think they might have another tough game on the schedule, Little Green. But Concord and Bedford are going to play off in that first round of the playoffs. They may be the two best teams in the state, and they're going to have to play each other for their conference championship. One of those guys isn't even going to make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I don't like about this setup. I do like the 3-division format an awful lot. I just would have preferred to see in each division 2 conferences. Like in Division 1, we would have 10 teams in the East, 10 teams in the West. I'm a big fan of balanced schedules. Everybody plays the same schedule, so you can fairly rate these teams. So in my scenario, you'd play a 9-game schedule against everybody in your Eastern Conference, and then top 4 would make it from the East and West, and at that point you can reseed or do whatever you want. I just think in that scenario you have a less chance of leaving out a deserving team. You'd have to finish 5th in your conference to not make it. That's a quick change that they could make. You could sit in the boardroom and a minute later approve that change, and I'm hopeful that that's something they look at for next season.
And they did only make this a 1-year deal, so they have the luxury of, kind of testing it out. I mean,
sure.
They said all along, this is like a test situation, so let's see how it plays out, and then we'll tinker if we need to. And I think that's what's going to happen. And look, we're learning as we go along. I'm glad they did something. I like the setup like you do as far as the 3 different divisions, but I still think there's some fine-tuning that needs to take place, and I'm not being critical of the NHIAA. I'm just saying, hey, we didn't think of that scenario, so we'll see how it goes after this 1 year, and then we'll collect. But the bottom line, Roger, is we got some real good football coming down the stretch. There's some real good football games coming up later today. I assume you might be working that BG Spalding game this afternoon?
I was planning on heading there, but we've had a change of plans at the office, so I'm actually not going to be at that one. I was looking forward to it because I haven't seen Spalding in person this year, and much like Winnacunnet, they've been really good some weeks and not so good others. So, I'm a little disappointed I'm not going to get to see the Red Raiders this afternoon.
All right, we got Roger Brown here filling in for Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com. Roger has the story from last night's game, the thriller in Derry. Pinkerton goes down against Concord, overtime 21-14, and it was a dramatic comeback by the Crimson Tide. You can see that work on UnionLeader.com, also in the print edition of the paper, and of course Roger will have it up on his fine website, NHFootballReport.com. We also have the NHSportsPage.com camera on the scene at Memorial Field. Interesting situation. I mean, you never hear of Pinkerton's field being called Memorial Field. Concord also plays on Memorial Field, but in Concord. But we had the camera out there. Great video highlights package by the great John Kesty that you can see. It's, I think, up right now on nhsportspage.com. You want to check that out, and you can watch the comeback. Thrilling ending to that one. We'll get into that when we come back after this quick break. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
From Manchester West to Winnicott, Central to Somersworth, and Portsmouth to Plymouth, the New Hampshire High School Football Show brings you the best coverage in the state on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show. We do it each and every Saturday morning between 8 and 9 a.m. live on the radio, News Radio 610 and 96.7. Pete Terrier in with Roger Brown from NHFootballReport.com and the Union Leader, New Hampshire Sunday News. Big headline in the UL sports section today under the Friday Night Lights tab. Tide remain unblemished, and it certainly was not easy, Roger. We were both at the game, and Pinkerton, I thought, really controlled the game for the most part all the way. Concord needing to go, 76 yards, 75 yards or so in the final 2.5 minutes. Got a big 50-yard pass play from Robbie Law to Jacob Zolks. And then a couple of plays later in the end zone, Law to Zolk. They needed a 2-point conversion because they were down 8 points. And then they just took it to them in the overtime. But what a football game that was. And it was well played on both sides, I thought.
Yeah, terrific game to watch. Both teams really exceptional on defense. I thought the Pinkerton defense was really taking over the game in the second half. Concord had no passing game. Law had no time to throw. I think I had him for 4 sacks in the second half alone. And then there was that. He just takes that one big play, that 50-yard pass, gave him some life. And credit to Concord, they were able to capitalize when they had to. Really, their only opportunity in the second half. But it looked like Pinkerton was the better team for most of that game.
I certainly thought so, but I'll tell you what, I think that 50-yard pass, and it wasn't like a wide receiver screen that gets broken for 50. This was
a legit 50. Yeah,
it was a bomb down the field. I think he caught it. The line of scrimmage on the play was the 35, and he threw it in the air, and Zols caught it at the 30 of Pinkerton and ended up rumbling down to the 15, and then they scored. But to me, that really broke the spirit of Pinkerton, because they seemed to be hanging their heads, especially after they tied up the game with the touchdown pass and then the 2-point run by Law.
Yeah, at that point, Concord has all the momentum in the world. It looks like they're going to be handed their first defeat, and they were given second life, and it's, that's a tough spot for Pinkerton to be in. Pinkerton defense still played okay in the overtime. I thought they they might have held them there, but Law came up with that 4th down play, and Indy ended up, or it was a pass in overtime, right? Or was the pass in regulation or the pass in overtime?
Indy had the touchdown run in overtime. Pass was in
regulation, yeah, and but the point is that Concord defense stepped up huge when Pinkerton had the ball, and Brian O'Reilly said he was going to go to his number one option, Manny Lattimore, which he went away from much of the regulation, and who can blame him? But I think Concord was expecting that and just shut him down there in the overtime session.
You had Lattimore, 21 carries, 173 yards, and a touchdown. Indy almost matching him, 22 carries, a $153 on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. And, oh, by the way, 2 different football jerseys. He had me fooled. You are a wise old veteran, and you picked up on it right away. But I noticed in the second half that number 42, Walters Indy, wasn't out there anymore. But they had a kid that looked just like him, same body style, but he was wearing number 24. And I was like, I'm tweeting out there, Indy not in the game anymore. I don't know what's going on. And then I said something to you, and you said, well, I just assumed he switched jerseys or something at halftime, and it turns out it was. I was like, they can't possibly have another kid that's basically his clone that's a sophomore. I think I said it was Joe Hart, who was listed as number 24 on the roster, and I said, man, this can't be the younger brother or the younger cousin. But then I thought to myself, well, they had Tolbert Nemo, and they were hiding Indy the last couple of years, at least on offense. So, who knows? Maybe they do have another guy, but turns out it was Wally Indy. They were playing shorthanded again for the second week in a row. Concord was. They did not have their outstanding sophomore running back Leo Sude out there. Apparently, he's been sat down for some kind of suspension or disciplinary reason. I'm not sure what the deal is. I don't know if you know.
Eric Brown, Concord coach, just told me, he was serving a suspension and wasn't going to play last night. And, Concord's got tons of weapons on offense, so if they had another one like Nadi, wouldn't be fair to the opposition.
Well, I think they unveiled a new receiving option. I mean, everybody talks about Simu Smith being an outstanding receiver, and he is. But he was held relatively in check last night. But who knew? 6'2" junior receiver. He's listed as Walter in the roster. He was Jacob a couple weeks ago when I saw him, and he said, well, Walter's my real name, but I go by Jacob Zultz, Szulc. He had a huge game. I don't know what his totals were, but he was the one that caught that big 50-yard pass, and he was just a problem for Pinkerton all night long. He just gave them another option to use on offense.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him. His TD catch was pretty athletic catch, I thought, and it's a young Pinkerton secondary. Again, they were really strong up front. I thought they got a lot of pressure on Law, but they gave up the big plays there in the last minute, 2 of them, and it cost them the victory.
Let's look at that Pinkerton schedule the rest of the way, because I think everybody knows that they're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, that's not a question. It was just a matter of who was going to win that game between Londonderry and Merrimack last night, who was going to end up facing Pinkerton in that conference championship game coming up second weekend in November. They got West next week. Obviously a win for Pinkerton. Goffstown plays at Pinkerton, and then let's see who Pinkerton closes the regular season with. They close it with a game at Merrimack. So I fully expect Pinkerton to rebound from that loss last night and run, wins off for each of the next 3 weeks in the regular season. And I expect them to be a real factor and to be in the Final Four, because they have really the easiest road to the Final Four, because they're going to have to play most likely Londonderry, their rivals, that Mac-Plac rivalry in the conference championship game. I think on November 9th, I believe, is that the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Pete. Londonderry, their victory over Merrimack, that was
convincing too, huh?
Yeah, and that was pretty much for the number 2 spot in that conference. And although there's a lot of football to be played, you can almost, with a lot of accuracy at this point, I think you can predict the 8-team playoff field in Division I. Barring some upsets from here to the end of the regular season, it looks like you have your teams that are in position, and as long as they don't mess it up, they're playoff bound.
All right, we'll take a break right now. We'll come back and we'll get Eric Brown, the head coach of the Concord Crimson Tide, on the phone. The number 1 team in the Union Leader WGIR WMUR Power Poll. I would later on in the show like to get you to talk a little bit about your ballot, and I'll talk a little bit about my ballot. We're both voters in that poll, and maybe take what we learned from last night and kind of project what our ballots might look like when they come out on Monday morning. We have to cast our ballots tomorrow after all the results from today are in. It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show. I want to thank Roger Brown from NHFootballReport.com and the Union Leader, the New Hampshire Sunday News, for filling in for Dave Haley today. Check out the website, NHFootballReport.com, and certainly pick up a copy of the paper and read the game story from Pinkerton and Concord last night. Quick break. When we come back, Eric Brown from Concord will be our guest on the New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Welcome back to the best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football on the New Hampshire High School Football Show on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
each and every Saturday morning between 8 and 9 o'clock live on the radio on these two fine stations. Also, you can get us anywhere, really. iHeartRadio. Just punch up either one of the two stations, News Radio 610 or 96.7 WQSO. You can find us if you're in Timbuktu. Just listen on your smartphone on iHeartRadio. Also, the video cast of the show on nhsportspage.com. You get to see Roger Brown, what he looks like at 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. It's not pretty, so next time you come in, Roger, we'll leave the camera off.
I'd appreciate that.
But certainly you can watch the highlights from the game last night. Concord against Pinkerton, went to overtime. We got the coach of the Crimson Tide on the phone right now, Eric Brown. Eric, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So did you get any sleep at all last night, or was it one of those nights you could sleep like a baby?
No, I wish. No, I didn't sleep that well.
How about the comeback by your team? Because it was not looking good. Down 14-6, 2 minutes, 2.5 or whatever to go. You're on your own 24. You not only need a touchdown, you need the 2-point conversion to tie it. And they had really dominated, I felt, throughout most of the game defensively. You guys moved the ball in the first half, but they kind of shut you down in the second half. And then next thing you know, you're in overtime and you're walking out of Pinkerton with a 7-point win. I mean, what a turn of events!
Yeah, it was great. It was great, for our kids, to face some adversity. Like you said, we really haven't had a lot of that up to this point, so it was good to see them respond that way. But I got to give Pinkerton a lot of credit. They did some really nice things defensively against us, but I think. That shows the versatility of our offense. You're right, they did shut us down, and for the most part in the second half. But we have a lot of different weapons, and Jake Zeltz, stepped up last night and had a great game.
Hey, Eric, it's Roger Brown. Good morning to you.
Hey, Roger.
Just curious, no disrespect to the other opponents you played this year, but I think you'd agree Pinkerton's the best team you faced, and how does that last night's victory help the team's confidence, beating a good team like that? And also, how much do you think it'll help your team down the road to be in the type of game you were in last night, which was almost a playoff-type game? I'm sure you're going to be in those situations as we get to November.
Yeah, I think it was great for our kids to experience that and play a full game, under those conditions. It was, we haven't, again, no disrespect to the other teams either, but we hadn't really done that up to this point. It was a great challenge for our guys, and a lot of these seniors have been motivated throughout the course of the year playing the Centrals and the Pinkertons, teams that they've never beaten before. So last night was a big game for the kids, inside.
I got to ask you, Coach, about Wally Indy. I mean, this kid, was primarily a defensive player for you guys last year, and Tolbert Nemo was your offense for the most part. You had Robbie Law come on as a sophomore last year, part of the way through the season, and proved that he could be a good quarterback for you, throwing the ball and running the ball. But where the heck were you hiding Indy? Was it just you were hiding him on defense? And I felt that maybe you over-relied on Nemo, and, man, if knowing what you know now, you probably would have liked to have played him a little bit last year.
Yeah, well, Walters was, he had some conditioning issues last year. He had a hard time playing both ways, and we had him as a middle linebacker last year, and that just takes a toll on you to try to play both ways from that position. So we moved him outside to an outside linebacker position, and physically it's not that demanding as it is to play inside. So he worked on his stamina a lot in the off season, and his conditioning level went way up, so he's able to carry the load on both sides of the ball now.
Eric, in the overtime, when you guys are on defense, did you mention anything to the kids about keying on Manny? I mean, I know he's hard to ignore, and you got to keep an eye on him throughout the game. And I thought Brian tried to go away from him at times during regulation, but did you expect him to just really try and ride Manny in that overtime session when Pinkerton had the ball?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we were keen on Manny the whole game, and like you said, Coach O'Reilly did a great job using him as a decoy throughout the game. That certainly opened up holes for Madden, and even their second touchdown, down on the goal line, we saw Laporto come in, and we're like, we thought definitely they're going to Manny, and they handed the ball off to him for a touchdown. So they did a great job, disguising that and using Manny as a decoy. But boy, when we thought for sure crunch time comes, in overtime they were going to give him the ball.
Let's talk about that Concord Crimson Tide defense. I mean, when your offense is scoring 50.8 points a game going into last night's game, the defense tends to get overlooked. But you got some players. I thought Dylan Naylor, who batted down that pass on fourth down in overtime and had a couple of big plays prior to that. Logan Lamoureux from that inside linebacker position is a hitter. Chris Skinner, that number 56, made some plays for you. One of the kids that we talked to after the game in the video on nhsportspage.com, Wyatt LaBombard, certainly a kid with some confidence and a kid that makes plays for you. Your defense is a lot better than people think.
Oh, definitely. I think we're the strength of our defense is certainly our run defense, and Pinkerton's passing game wasn't as much of a threat as some others. Certainly, Memorial kind of exposed us a little bit. We've been working hard at getting better at that, and Pinkerton created a whole different kind of a challenge for us. But our defense is, they take a lot of pride in their defense, and since that Memorial game, they've come out against two pretty physical running teams and done a pretty good job. Londonderry and Pinkerton.
Eric, you mentioned run defense being a strength. How do you feel you match up against Bedford? They're a team that's they kind of throw it to run it, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're going to cause you some problems. How do you feel about them and that matchup next week?
No, they like to throw it around, and they're pretty don't. So, I mean, if we, hopefully, like I said, we've worked hard at getting better at our pass defense, and hopefully that's going to show next week, because Bedford's going to give us a lot of problems there in that part of the game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I mean, do you think that you guys are going to be able to get back up for that game? Because last night certainly took a lot out of your team.
Yeah, that won't be that's not going to be a problem. This game, the Bedford game, really has some significant playoff implications for us, and we know it. At the home field, whoever wins that game is going to host the conference championship game. I'm assuming, unless there's some major problems down the road for either of us. But no, we won't have a problem getting up. It's going to be a great home crowd, and the kids will be ready to go.
What were you most proud of, about last night, Eric? Things weren't always going your way. It was tough sledding there offensively, particularly in the second half. But you did get the win. You made the plays when you had to. You came up big in overtime, both offensively and defensively. Was there one thing that really you were really pleased with? And if you can, share with us what you said to the team after the game.
I think just the way we handled ourselves. Like this is our first really, getting punched in the mouth, so to speak, by a team. And, we responded. And I was really pleased with that and how we handled ourselves, through that adversity of, certainly trailing in the game and late in the game, how we handled ourselves that way. And both sides of the ball. Special teams also, we did a pretty good job, on our kick coverage, and we kicked a few balls out of bounds. We wish we didn't do, but punts and things like that, we did a good job. So I think overall, I was really happy with the way we handled ourselves last night. And being on the big stage like that for the first time for some of these guys in a long time.
And one thing I think I neglected to ask you last night, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but the 2-point conversion was a huge play. How much thought went into the play call there, or were you pretty sure you knew what you wanted to do? Because you certainly had a lot of room to run on that play.
Yeah, I mean, we we thought about doing something else, but we liked the play we called was a waggle, and it gives our quarterback a run-pass option. So we like that call down there, and I think they were all pretty much gearing up for some kind of a run. That I think we've shown that in the past. So we were happy with it. We thought about it beforehand, what we would run in that situation. So it was just good execution, I guess, on our part. Robbie does a nice job with his fakes, and he's pretty pretty heady. So,
Coach Brown, we really appreciate the time, and thanks for joining us on Saturday morning. And we'll see you next Friday night out there at Memorial Field in Concord. The next game of the year on the schedule.
Great. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm so happy that you guys do what you do. It's great for high school football.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Eric.
Eric Brown, head coach of the Concord Crimson Tide, victorious at Pinkerton last night in overtime. Thrilling come-from-behind victory, 21-14. We'll take a break. Before we do, I've got to tell you about something really cool that's going on across all of our New Hampshire Clear Channel stations, the Live Free and Buy online Epic Savings Event. You go to WGIRAM.com, newsradio967.com, hit the keyword buy, and you can find great deals on a lot of cool stuff. Roger, I know you're really frugal, and you like to save money as much as possible. There's all kinds of cool stuff on there. Just looking on the page right now, you can get a generator, a $2,500 generator, and there's a current bid right now at $799 for a $2,500 generator.
Well, I can top that bid.
You can top that bid. We'll get on right now, WGIRAM.com, newsradio967.com, the keyword buy. There's restaurant gift certificates. I know you're a big fan of Buffalo Wild Wings out there in Newington and Rochester. You can get deeply discounted gift certificates for places like that, Shorty's. The Manchester Monarch got a season ticket package up there that you can get for a really, really good deal. All kinds of awesome stuff there. Birthday parties, stuff to do with the kids. Check it out. The Live Free and Buy online Epic Savings event going on through next Thursday night at 10 o'clock. So you got some time to peruse, and it's just a lot of fun watching how your bids, people outbid you and things like that. You can watch it all online. It's pretty cool stuff. WGIRAM.com, newsradio967.com. The keyword is buy. Quick timeout. Come back. Final thoughts. We'll talk a little bit about what we think the power poll is going to look like on Monday. We'll look at that big BG Spalding matchup for this afternoon. Just kind of go around the league and look ahead to next week and see what some of the big games are. Roger Brown filling in for Dave Haley on the New Hampshire High School Football Show. News Radio 610
It's the New Hampshire High School Football Show on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Final few minutes of the program. I want to thank Roger Brown, NHFootballReport.com, New Hampshire Union Leader, New Hampshire Sunday News, filling in for Dave Haley, doing a fine job and making his video debut on NHSportsPage.com, as we'll have the video cast of the program coming up a little bit later on this morning. You can also check out the highlight package from not one but two games last night. I was on the scene for that Concord-Pinkerton awesome game, overtime game, won by the Crimson Tide 21-14. We've also got some highlights from that Keene Winnicott game last night, a win 30-19 by the Blackbirds, although it still might not be enough to get them into the playoffs because of the tough conference they're in with Nashua South and Bishop Girton. I want to thank Jen Chick, newest member of that NHSportsPage.com staff, for doing a good job putting a highlight package, doing the film job out there in the western part of the state. Roger, not a lot of marquee matchups, so to speak, on the slate for today. I think that Spalding at Girton game is an interesting one, and mostly to see how Spalding can do against BG. BG is obviously a real tough team this year, a certain championship contender. I see them kind of down a level from the Concords and the Bedfords and the Pinkertons of the league, but I still think they're a good football team, and I'm really looking forward to the game next week when they play Nashua South. I'm a Nashua guy, and I thought it was a shame that once BG got really good and good enough to compete with the Nashua schools, that they wouldn't play each other because of the split. They were in different divisions, and they got muscled out of the Turkey Bowl game. But I'm very excited about that game next Friday night. As a matter of fact, I'm somewhat torn between going to that game or going to that Concord-Bedford game next Friday night.
Yeah, two good games. And let me just say, as a Nashua guy, BG had its opportunity. They could have played those Nashua schools.
I agree.
You know, so, you know, if they wanted it that bad, it was certainly there for the taking. But, yeah, it's the first time Girton and South have played in a long time. I agree with you. I think Girton may be just a notch below some of these top-tier teams. Having said that, I think they're capable of beating any of those teams. And let's not forget, they got a kid named C.J. Boykin. They'll be back soon.
Is he coming back? I mean, we've been hearing about it. He might be coming back, and he just hasn't got on the field yet.
Yeah, I was told, you know, last four games of the season was the initial or the latest what I heard. So you never know until you see him out there, of course. But I know he's expected back, and you know, he's a huge weapon when he does get back.
So is Rob Gronkowski, but we'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see him anytime soon. I want to talk a little bit about the Plymouth-Portsmouth matchup next week. Plymouth did not play last night. They're playing a game today. They're going to win against Laconia, I'm sure. 1:30 in Plymouth, the land of Lenahan. But next week it's Portsmouth at Plymouth. I think we're at that. Yeah, you were at the Plymouth Trinity game where they just dominated Trinity, and you were also, I think, maybe at that Portsmouth Trinity game at the beginning of the year, or no?
Week one, no, I was not there. I think I was Bedford.
Oh, yeah, you were at Bedford Pinkerton. Okay. Well, Trinity dominated Portsmouth in that game, although there was some injuries in that game for Portsmouth. They lost their two top quarterbacks, Donovan Fenor and Nate McFarland, who were also defensive backs, and that game, Carmen Giampetruzzi threw for 350 yards. But I wonder how Portsmouth will face Plymouth next week, because Portsmouth is a spread team. They run that really fast-paced offense. They could give Plymouth some problems, where Trinity, I thought, just tried to run it into the teeth of the defense, and they didn't really use that spread offense, and I didn't quite understand it.
Yeah, I mean, first thing, Pete, I think a lot of people might be putting too much stock into that Trinity victory over Portsmouth. Not only did Portsmouth lose two quarterbacks, they were without two offensive tackles, two defensive tackles. I mean, there was a lot going on there that week. All the credit to Trinity for putting up all those points, but that team was not the Portsmouth team that's going to be taking the field next weekend either. Yeah, to me, the defenses are the ones that are going to be challenged up in Plymouth. You know, Plymouth will be facing a Portsmouth team that can strike from anywhere, has all kinds of weapons, gets the ball to a lot of different people in a lot of different places. And then conversely, Portsmouth's got to muscle up and not let Plymouth just run right over them. It's two different styles. It's a finesse versus a physical style of football offensively, and very intriguing matchup, and it'll tell us a lot about, you know, who fits where in Division II in terms of the run for the title this year.
We only got about a minute and a half to go before the show is over, Roger. And I know neither one of us, I should say, is a Division III aficionado or even that knowledgeable about Division III. But
I love Division III.
I love Division III too. But we spend most of our time covering Division I and Division II teams, and we don't want to slight the Division III teams. But that Guilford Newfound game around the lake, that's a pretty big game this afternoon at 1.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Division III is everybody is so bunched up. I kept hearing about how it's not going to be competitive, and it's been anything but. You know, one week could make or break a lot of these teams in terms of playoff positioning, and that's one of them today that'll go a long way towards determining who makes the playoffs or who doesn't in that conference. So there's a lot of intriguing matchups, you know, in that division pretty much every weekend.
Well, look at that South Conference in Division III. Pelham, Bow, Campbell, and Somersworth. Those might be the four best teams in the entire division in the same conference.
Yeah, I would agree. Certainly four teams that are capable and probably deserving of being in the postseason. So, again, we go back to maybe we should tweak the how things are aligned in terms of you know, who makes the playoffs.
All right, final 15 seconds here, Roger, and I'm just going to ask you real quick. Who's your number one team? Is it Concord? Is it Bedford in the next poll?
Concord.
I say Concord as well. Raj, thanks so much for coming in and filling in for Dave. Be sure to check out nhfootballreport.com. His first and 10 column coming up in the New Hampshire Sunday News tomorrow, the Union Leader. For John Kesty, watch for the video highlight package of that game, Concord-Pinkerton last night, and the show broadcast coming up on the sports page tomorrow, nhsportspage.com.